Kelsey, the very first thing you asked me when we were doing the planning of exactly what we're going to do and who's going to intro you and you're going to come on stage, and you said, let's talk about my walk-on music. And I said, we've had DMCA takedown request issues with the live stream in the past, so we're not doing that. But you want to start by telling us, if you could have walk-on music, what would your walk-on music be here?
So we're in Minneapolis, and I was thinking it has to be something by Prince. And so I was thinking about Kiss from Prince. And if you think about it, the whole song was about DevOps, right? There's a line that goes, there's no particular tool that DevOps is compatible with. All I need is your extra time in your... Keep it simple. So that whole song was about DevOps.
That is fantastic. I love it. Okay, so I guess we'll start there with the definitions are hard. And I also think that everybody comes to this thinking, I am so stoked. I'm going to learn how to be Kelsey Hightower. All right, so the becoming Kelsey Hightower question. You want to give us some superhero origin story, and what can people follow the model of to get from where you think you started to being here in Minneapolis talking about Prince?
Oh, wow. So when you hear a question like that, you think about like how you started your career. I'm one of those self-taught engineers. That means you learn from people you've never met, the books, the blog posts, all of those things that go into teaching someone else something else. And in my career, I started off getting the A+ certification. Long story short, working from fast food to getting a job that was deemed respectable by society. For me, what does technology mean? What does the opportunity mean? You can definitely be a really good system administrator. You can be a legendary software engineer. But for me, there's this one moment in my career where I realized that this technology thing complements me and gives me my superpower. I've told this story many of times, but I'll tell it again here today. My first tech job was working as a contractor for Bell South. This is when they were doing DSL in the early days. I remember those.
Oh, heck yeah.
Someone would drive up to your house, with a modem in their bag. And I drove up this house in Atlanta. This is like 2000, 2001. And this person comes out and meets me in this driveway. And he's really reluctant to have someone that looks like me come into his house. This is a beautiful house. You have to drive half a mile up the driveway to get to this house. And he has to make a decision. Does he let me in to do the install, or does he get back on the waiting list, and it's going to be 9 months until he gets another opportunity for a tech to show up to do the install? As we're walking through the house, he makes the call. We walked in through the house, and on the walls, you're seeing these pictures with presidents. This person is an architect. He's a city planner. He's designed many of the large cities in the United States. He's kind of a big deal. And we walked back to the home office, and on the table, you can imagine what the computer looked like, one of those big CRT monitors. They're pretty illegal these days. You can't have them. They probably have like mercury in them. You can't even recycle them. And he had this huge printer. So back in my day, we used to connect printers with cables. There's this huge parallel cable. You're gonna go home, Mom, what's a parallel cable? But we used to connect our printers that way. And so now I'm standing in front of his computer, and as a technician, you gotta make two choices. What type of modem do you give him? We can give you the cheap USB modem that's sure to fail, and you will be on tech support for 4 hours. Damn that technician. Or I can give you the Ethernet modem, and it requires you to crack open the computer, place an Ethernet card, and this is Windows like 98 that we're talking about here. The chances of this driver installation going right the first time were very low. But I decided to take the plunge because I know if I gave him the Ethernet modem, it's going to be way faster. I closed up the computer, and he was like, so now what? I was like, click on Internet Explorer. And he was so amazed that he no longer had to go through AOL to get to the internet. And it just shows up on the screen. In the midst of my showing off, I decided that his printer should live on the other side of the room, and I ran an Ethernet cable to connect it to a switch. And he was sitting there in awe. Number one, first he was afraid to let someone like me in his house. We're 45 minutes in at this point, and he's asking me this question, where do you learn all of this stuff? And I was like, Barnes & Noble. We had bookstores also back then. And we're in Atlanta, and he said, wow, my son goes to Georgia Tech, and he can't do anything. But the most important part of that story for me was when we hit the hour mark, he was so impressed with my skills and capabilities. And so at that point in time, I understood that tech was not only a thing that can give me kind of this job, but it also can actually not just change the way computers work, but in real time, I watched it change how humans work. His perception of the way people thought about me changed right there on the spot. And so I left him with this impression that I can be talented, I can be super smart, and I can actually make things work and behave the way they want to. And so for me, that kind of changed my entire tech career, and that's who Kelsey is.
I love that, Kelsey, and I have heard this story before, and it means so much to me every time I think about it, because I think that the actions that we all take in our day-to-day interacting with people are going to be colored by how they treat us, and they're also going to be colored by the perceptions we can create. Because it's like we cannot fix every single problem in the entire world, but we can create a space that lifts people up, that gives them the opportunity to learn, and I'm really happy with seeing that, with seeing like your approach to, and I've seen over the years, I've seen your demos, your blog, just your tweet threads about topics. You're so generous with your time and your energy, helping other people learn. And so I'm just kind of amazed and thinking, wow, Kelsey, tell us right now, what do you think people should be learning right now? Like, I know I'm jumping past the current state of everything. We can talk about cloud containers and Kubernetes, all the old standards, but can you give us a quick preview? What should people be thinking about right now?
Yeah, everyone has advice for this, but honestly, the truth is you should be learning what's in front of you. I think a lot of times we zoom past the thing that's most important. For some people, it's going to be learning to be a better father. Some people, it's going to be better learning the job that you currently have. When I started my career, I worked in tech support, right? That's where you answer the phone, and you can look at that job and say, oh, this isn't the glamorous job, so I don't need to pay attention to this job. But the truth is, if you pay attention to this job, there's so many skills you learn doing tech support. You learn a bunch of empathy about how things work in reality. You understand that people will be super frustrated. No one calls tech support to say hi. So when someone calls tech support, you gotta have a bit of empathy to realize that there's a human on the other side of that call, and all they want is for the system or the thing to work as advertised, and your job in that moment is to try to get it there. That particular skill I've been using my entire 20-year career. No matter if you're building cloud systems, you're writing software for your customers, it's the same exact thing. There's a human on the other side of that thing that just wants it to work. So if you're patient with the job or task that's in front of you, I think you should learn that and go super deep. So in our industry, we tend to say, skip all of that stuff and worry about this thing that's so pie in the sky that you lose this opportunity to actually grow.
So what you're saying is that software is in fact largely made up of people. As I believe Astrid Atkinson, your colleague at Google for many years, was wont to say. She says, you think that software is made of code, but it's largely made up of people and our interactions with each other. Wow, I love it.
Yeah, and you got to be careful here, because I know we get to the point where we say the technology part is easy, the people part is hard. That is not true at all.
Not true.
You actually need skills to build software. And a lot of companies have tried to use this excuse for hiring people that may or may not know what they're doing, and that's okay, we all can learn. But then where's the coaching, right? We have to actually get better over time. So I think a lot of people have used that statement as a crutch and as an excuse for actually not actually getting better at the actual thing you're supposed to have skills in. And then, of course, people come together to actually collaborate and actually build things.
And that's a really good point, too, because most of us don't go to work thinking, I want to do a bad job today, and I definitely don't want to learn. I mean, of course, that's not happening. So it's a question of, is room carved out for you to learn? Is your organization giving you the opportunity to come and meet with your peers at conferences? Are you getting all of the trainings, if you need trainings, if you need certifications? If you just need some time to work on it with your colleagues, and figure out that what was written down, maybe when they first set the system up 6 months ago, a year ago, not accurate anymore?
Yeah, I would say there's a bit of personal responsibility. How many people think their organization is responsible for them getting skills? Absolutely not.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no excuse that if you're in this industry 20 years and you sit back and say, well, no one trained me, you're probably going to lose. There is no way an organization can be responsible for your skill set. They can make it easier to grow and develop, but at the end of the day, you're ultimately responsible. You're not stuck at a particular job. You're not stuck or prevented from learning on your own time. Does it suck? Yeah, it would be nice to learn everything we needed to learn during company time, but it just doesn't work that way. So I think in reality, ultimately, we're responsible. The reason why I like being responsible is that we also get the power to teach other people. A lot of people in this room are also educators as a part-time job. Many of you have written blog posts that I'm sure I've read or come across. That responsibility gives us that authority to decide when we skill up and how. So that's just been my personal take on like the ability to actually grow your skill set.
I love it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some stuff out on GitHub and some stuff you've demoed. Obviously, you did publish the no-code repo, which is very exciting. But I'm wondering if you can kind of tell us what right now is a technology thing that you would recommend people take a look at, or something that you're interested in. Should people Kuber some netties? Is that a thing that they should do?
Should they do what?
Should they in fact Kuber some netties so that they have some Kubernetes?
Oh my God. I'm tired of the K word. I'll tell you, there's a technology. It's become very fashionable to increment the web. So you guys remember there was JavaScript frameworks. We got a new one every week.
Yeah.
At this pace, be at Web 100 in a few months. But this one is interesting because there's this new generation that's looking at everything that currently exists and thinks it should be different, wholesale. And typically, when you jump into technology, you kind of learn the job that's in front of you. You figure out why things work the way they work, and then you go on to improve it. Kind of this over time evolution. Now there's this angst globally to change it all right now. And in order to do that, most people are having a hard time understanding the difference between a feature, like improving something with a new technique, and a whole new thing altogether. And I think since we're getting confused on that, people are doing things like incrementing the web as believing they're going to change the whole thing. So this is interesting to me because lots of DevOps is about where humans and technology intersect. If you're not paying attention to what's happening there, this is the biggest movement of that. It's actually more inclusive than the stuff that we do because it's starting to touch people in their finances. It's starting to touch things like art. You don't have to be a system administrator with 20 years of experience to build things in that world. So while I may be a skeptic of that world, it is really interesting that they found a way to include more people in what they're doing than we've ever managed to do in our world. So it personally had me challenge the definition of gatekeeper. What happens when you do that unintentionally? It wasn't your purpose, but people don't actually show up. And so I think they found a way to actually reverse that and invite people to build something, even though I think the foundation isn't necessarily suitable.
Yeah, no, that's funny to me because when we were talking about this last night at the speaker dinner, I remember thinking like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm like Web 0.5 because I still use, VI and Bash. But we have, I think we have an opportunity to move stuff forward in an exciting way. And I hope that, as you're saying, we don't end up with too much gatekeeping. I want to make sure that there is space,
Well, I got stuck in my ways. I was using VI. Where's my Vim users at? Lots of Vim users. And I've been loyal. And then I downloaded GoLand from JetBrains. And I was like, this can't be better than Vim. You see all these key bindings? And then I did something, and I realized that I was missing out. I'm writing a normal REST API. JSON comes in, JSON comes out, and sometimes you need to call another service that responds with JSON. And normally I get this tedious thing of, you hit the other site with curl, you get a JSON response. Then what do? Well, if you're writing in a type language like Golang, then you have to actually build out all the types, and then you have a client binding if all they have is documentation. And so I'm using the IDE. Now I'm ashamed because I don't want any Vim users to know that I moved over to the dark side and I was using my mouse. So I copied from my terminal that JSON block and I put it in the IDE, kind of as a placeholder, so I can write all the other code and then delete it. And when I pasted it into the IDE, it said, would you like me to generate all of the types and the client bindings? And I just pushed back from my desk and was like, yeah. Enter. And so I do think sometimes we get, even people that have been doing this for a while, we get stuck in our ways. And I kind of realized that technology has advanced. And someone asked me, and I think you kind of alluded to this earlier, is, how do you know what the future's going to look like? And there's this saying, it's easy to predict the future when you're working on it. So all the things that are painful right now, the people that are actually working to make it easier literally are the ones that are shaping the future. And if it's not you because you're comfortable using the tools that you have, you'll never be part of that future. And I'll say one more thing here. You ever remember when Docker came out? I was working at Puppet Labs, the configuration management company. And DevOps had really just become like this word everyone was using to describe or attempting to describe what we were doing. A couple of years went by and Docker came out. You couldn't say it in the office. Like if you said containers, people were like, oh, no. Configuration management, infrastructure as code. We don't say the container word. And I was very surprised that all of us in the operations world, we were working on automation. And it turns out we were automating the wrong abstraction layer. And a whole nother group came out of left field and said, no, there's gotta be a better way of doing this. We're literally trying to package an application and put it on the server. Why do we need to write 10,000 lines of code to do that? And so a new group emerged and gave us better abstractions, and they're still here today. That's a good signal that maybe we weren't paying attention. We got too focused on automating what we knew versus trying to reimagine what it should be. And so that was kind of my big takeaway from that journey.
Yeah, that's very insightful. And I'm also thinking, as we've talked about, for example, you've rocked the live demo stage for many years, and at the same time, now you're doing a lot of these keynote chats, which is fantastic, these fireside chats. Well, projector side chats. The projectors are warm.
It is hot.
But I'm curious, what do you think, and this is a question that we actually got from Twitter, what do you think is the best way for us to mindfully make space for, listen to the ideas of, and advance the visibility of people who aren't us? Because I got to tell you, Kelsey, you and I are on stage, and that's fantastic. And I really hope that 5 years from now, 3 years from now, heck, Fleener is already in charge of this all. So, I'm really hoping we're not the ones on stage forever. So, what do you see as the trajectory of the technologist who has done it all and ...
Yeah, I think the thing for me is my DMs are open on Twitter. This is dangerous. I don't recommend it for everybody. You get some weird stuff in your direct messages. I'm like, I can screenshot this and share it with the world, right? But occasionally you'll get that person that's new, and they have all of these ideas, and they'll ask for a moment of your time. And honestly, I do think that's for experienced people, the best thing you could do is give people your time. You don't have infinite time, so you gotta be careful. But I'll listen to them one-on-one, and they'll tell me all their wonderful ideas. Some of them even manage to inspire me to remind me why I got into this in the first place. And my advice has always been to them is whatever you feel right now, this excitement, the way you look, the way you feel, Figure out how to preserve that as long as possible, because most of these places where you'll go to work will drain it from you quickly. And so I think we do this. Think about it. You get a new person on the team. They join the stand-up, and you can't wait to tell them how much it sucks. This is broken. This doc is out of date. You can't do that. You have to do it this way. Follow the steps, follow the guide. And all the imagination leaves this person. Over time, this person just stops having the ability to think about a different way of doing things. So I try to ask them and just tell them, create their own space and guard it with rigor. Ideally, if you trade your time for money, most of us have to do that, that 8 hours may belong to them, but the rest of the days belong to you. And so don't give them all of your time. Take this time to actually produce and imagine. And look, most people will tell you it's a dumb idea or it sucks, but that's cool. That's what private repos are for. All right? There's nothing wrong with having lots of private repos, but you can scratch your own itch and then look, share it with someone else. And even if people don't like it, that's okay too. So that's my number one advice to me. But share your time and then try to have people preserve their imagination as long as we can.
I love that. And I think that that's a great way for us to encourage people, is telling them it's okay to have their imagination, and their ideas are probably, something that they can iterate on.
Your ideas don't even have to be good. That's the funny part. It doesn't have to be good. It's just like anything. You can actually produce something, and if it works for you, you get to share it with others. To me, that's like the original spirit of this whole open source thing. You don't always have to be competing with every project in the world. You don't have to compete on GitHub stars. You actually don't have to build a company around it. You can literally just share your ideas with other people, and a lot of times the best ideas take off that way, where you're just trying to solve an actual problem, and it may turn out you're gonna solve problems for other people too. So I encourage people to not overthink this thing, and then just share what they have.
Yeah, and it's so funny, we've gotten this far into this before we've even mentioned that we, as you mentioned, work at companies where we exchange labor for money, and the companies that we work at happen to be cloud providers. And one of the things that I think is really important, and maybe you can touch on a little bit, is the collaboration that happens across the industry between cloud providers, for example, or other competitors in the space who are actually working on a bunch of this open source stuff together. Like, I think a lot of people think, oh, wow, Microsoft and Google sitting on a stage together, what's happening? And it's like, first of all, I am not the embodiment of a company. But second of all, what's your sense of the collaboration across the open source ecosystem, which, all the tech giants are doing?
If you've been paying attention, it was amazing. The last decade of tech, I believe that the open source communities have influenced the giants to move in that direction and not the other way around. When Kubernetes came out, we all thought cloud was one thing, and Kubernetes doesn't take off until all the other people get involved, the Red Hats of the world, the Amazons of the world, the Microsofts of the world. But the reason why they did it is because you, the customer, you, the contributor, you, the developer, decided that that's the tool you wanted to use. And so most cloud providers respond to that. And so a lot of people believe that the cloud provider holds all the chips. They actually don't. At some point, you have to build things that your customers want to use. And that power of the developer that we saw a decade prior, it has manifested itself in the actual cloud provider tools, the toolings of your vendors. And actually, many of us have become the vendor. You haven't realized that a lot of people have left the big companies, started the new movement, whether it's Prometheus or Docker or these things, and they have become the new industry standard that is now being adopted by the large players. So if you want to know who's actually in control of where things are going, is actually the community. When they decide that something's going to be an open standard, it only ends up being an open standard through one word: adoption. It doesn't matter what you create. If no one's using it, it just doesn't matter. So these de facto standards have gone on to become industry standards. And so I think that's where the collaboration comes from. I don't know if we're as friendly as we could be proactively, but I do think that the community responds and we're all paying attention. So it looks like this intentional collaboration, but truth is the forcing function comes from the very people in the audience.
I couldn't agree more that the fact that someone is using the software is what gives it power. So otherwise, it is sitting in a repo, making people wonder if they should hit archive.
You hit the star button. There are people who raise a lot of VC money on GitHub stars. I've seen pitch decks where people's like, look how many GitHub stars we have. Like, yeah, that's worth $30 million.
I mean, who knows where the economic realities are going to take us. So before we wrap, I would love to have you kind of give our community your next steps. How do they connect with you, chat with you here at the conference? What do you want to chat about? I know you're going to be around during the day-to-day. What should people come talk to you about? Because Kelsey is an extrovert, and he wants to chat with you. So.
You can chat with me about anything, but I just want you to understand like where I am at this point in my career. Someone asked me, I was at an airport waiting for our flight, and the person showed me their really nice Rolex watch, the one that has been to space and people bid on it when the astronauts come back because these are super limited edition. And my arms are bare as they are now. And they said, hey, Kelsey, what are you into? And I was like, I thought about it for a second and said, listen, I am not working this hard to buy a nice watch. I'm working this hard so I won't need one. And I think as a person that has been doing this long enough, as good as I've gotten as a technologist, I want to be even better as a person. So if you come up to me, you could also talk about people things. Kubernetes is fantastic. Service mesh is fantastic. But also you as a person, you're probably growing and developing. You probably have stories to share. I would love to hear those too. So if you see me walking around, anything is fair game, from Magic the Gathering to Istio Service Mesh. So I'll be around, and also my DMs are still open. But again, appropriate things, please. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, awesome. So don't send anything that is going to make him say, I just don't think I can answer this, because one of the other things I've seen you do is someone might send you a question and you write up a long thread full of ideas and input, not just for that one person, but you're out there sharing with the whole world. And you are only here today, so catch him before the evening event Ignite start, if you want to chat with Kelsey.
Before we wrap, I think this is important. Yes. One of my very first large conference talks, there's this person that sits in the front row, and this person stays super in tune to every speaker that they get a chance to watch. They take diligent notes, and they tweet wonderful things about their presentation. They do it so well. No matter what you said, when you read the way this person phrases what you said, you feel like the best speaker on earth. You even show it to your colleagues and your friends. Look, Mom, I'm famous. On Twitter, under the hashtag DevOps, today only. And that person is Bridget. And we always wait too long to give people their flowers, to give people their credit. And when you think about what it means to actually have community, if you're a speaker doing a night talk or your talk, there'll probably be a person sitting in that front row giving you all the confidence in the world. And you've done that for so many people. So I want to say thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Kelsey. I really appreciate you. And I will say that when I was last changing jobs, I chatted with Kelsey at a conference, and he gave me great career advice, and I ended up in a company in a role that I'm really happy at. And I feel like this is the kind of community that I'm so proud that we're building. And I'm so happy that Kelsey was willing to randomly drop into Minneapolis, even though he's Kelsey Hightower. But he's like, I will come to your event. I said, thank you, Kelsey, because I think our community is going to really appreciate getting a chance to get to know you. So, all right, give it up for Kelsey Hightower.